Yo, what is up you guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. In today's video, we're going to be doing a slight tune-up on the SI. We're going to flush all of the fluids and replace the spark plugs. This video took me a while to get done, so hit that like button. And with that being said, let's get into the video. Let's go. So let's start off by replacing the spark plugs. You need to remove the cowl to get access to the spark plugs. So you need to remove these 3 clips. After that, you can remove the cowl by pulling on each side. Once you have it removed, just move it to the side. After setting the cowl aside, we also need to remove this metal brace. It's very simple to remove. Just 4, 10, and 12 millimeters on each side, and then 1 10 millimeter in the center. It's very easy to remove, but it's even easier to lose a bolt, so be careful. After removing those fasteners, we can pull the bracket out. With that out the way, we have so much more room to work with. But we still need to remove this coil pack cover. It's very simple, just 4 10 millimeter bolts. With the bolts removed, we can lift the cover out the way. Now we have access to the coil packs, and they're secured down by 10 millimeter bolts, and you'll need a deep socket for 2 out of the 4 bolts. Then we can just pull out the coil packs and disconnect them. And what I like to do is to set them down in the same order just to be safe. And with the coil packs out the way, we can start removing the spark plugs. So this can either be an easy or tricky process depending on your socket. Sometimes when you try to pull out the spark plugs, it won't come out just because the rubber O-ring inside the socket is no good or just missing. So if this happens to you, I recommend using a magnet, or in my case, since I couldn't find my magnet, another thing you can do is stuff the socket with tissue paper or any type of paper you have laying around. And with that little trick, you should be able to pull out your spark plugs. So checking out these old spark plugs, they don't look too bad, but it's always good to have new spark plugs. So now all we gotta do is install the new ones and put everything back together how it was. I also like to mention that in this video, I'm not going to cover how to change the engine oil. I actually have a full-length video covering that. So if you're interested in that, be sure to click the I on the top right. It's a few days after now. We're gonna flush and refill the coolant. Flushing the coolant is actually very easy. We just need to find the radiator drain plug, and it looks something like this. Sometimes the plug can be kind of hard to remove, so what I like to do is use some pliers. And don't forget to use a drain pan. When removing the drain plug, I like to leave the radiator cap on so that the coolant doesn't come splashing down. Once I got the drain plug off is when I take off the radiator cap for better flow. Usually it takes a while for it to drain, so in the meantime I like to clean the coolant reservoir. When the stream slows down, I like to completely remove the plug. If you guys are wondering, I bought about 2 gallons worth of coolant and I used around 1.5 gallons. This is where you can find the coolant reservoir. I like to dump out any of the remaining coolant and clean out the reservoir with some water. It's actually pretty dirty, so good thing we're taking care of this right now. Once the coolant stops draining, you can screw the drain plug back in place. So now we just need to slide the reservoir in place. Then we can fill up our cooling system, top it off, and make sure all the air bubbles escape. With the new coolant, the car also needs new transmission fluid, so we're going to go ahead and replace that. But first we need to find the fill and drain plug for the transmission fluid that's located underneath the driver's side. But I always recommend taking off the fill plug first, because say first you remove the drain bolt and you can't remove the fill plug, that won't be good for you. To remove the fill bolt, it's just a 14mm. Then to remove the drain bolt, all you need is a 3/8 drive ratchet. When changing any fluid in your car, I recommend letting it cool down after you've driven it, because it could be really hot. Like I mentioned before, you can just use a 3/8 drive ratchet to remove the drain bolt. To fill up your transmission fluid, you'll most likely need a long funnel like this. And I ordered this one off of Amazon, it was really cheap. You can probably find one online or at any parts store. Once you're ready to fill up your transmission fluid, make sure your drain bolt is back in place and begin to refill your transmission. Your Civic should take about 1.5 quarts of transmission fluid, which is 1.5 bottles, and just fill it up till the transmission fluid starts coming out of the fill plug.
Go for it. Ready? Yeah.
With that done, I like to replace the brake fluid. Locate your brake fluid reservoir, remove the cap and the plastic filter. And to remove some of the old brake fluid, I like to use a turkey baster. It's very easy to use. It sucks out the old fluid from the reservoir. And once I take out most of it, I like to top it off with some brand new fresh brake fluid. When bleeding the brakes, I like to follow this pattern, which starts with the furthest away caliper and works your way forward. After we remove the old brake fluid, I'm just going to top it off. And once we start bleeding the brakes, you want to make sure the reservoir stays full with brake fluid, because if not, then air can get stuck in the brake system. Alright guys, so like I mentioned before, we're going to start from the furthest away brake caliper and work our way forward. And once you have the wheel off and have access to your brakes, locate the bleeder screw and begin to bleed your brakes. It's the next day. I've got this tent out because it's really hot out here in the Arizona sun. I was going to use some of last night's footage, but it got too dark, so I waited till the morning so you guys could see the brake bleeding process. So we're gonna go ahead and finish up the front brakes. The rear brakes are pretty much the same thing as the front ones. Make sure you give the brake pedal a few pumps, then break loose the bleeder screw with a special brake line socket or wrench, and just let all that old fluid drain out. Make sure every so often you top off your brake fluid. you have a small bleeder tool like I do, make sure you check it as well and drain it whenever you need to. Once we finish with one side, we can move on to the next. Finally, with the brakes bled, we can finally bleed the clutch. It's very easy to bleed your clutch. It's very similar to your brakes. Just locate the slave cylinder, attach your bleeder tool to your bleeding screw, and it's pretty much the same process as bleeding your brakes. Before I forget to mention, remove the old fluid from the reservoir. Once you get that done, make sure to keep the reservoir full with brake fluid, like the brake fluid reservoir. Using the turkey baster again, we're going to remove all that old fluid. If you guys were wondering, I used the same 32-ounce bottle for both the brakes and the clutch, and I still had a bit left afterwards. Once we refilled our reservoir with new brake fluid, we'll break loose our bleeder and begin to pump the clutch to flush all that old fluid out. Make sure to check up on the fluid and keep it full. Once you start seeing clear fluid come out, that's when you know you're done bleeding your clutch. Anyways, you guys, that pretty much concludes today's video. If you guys did find it helpful or informative, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.